right. Good morning again, everyone.
Good morning,
Let's
Your
go
Honor.
on the record.
We are on the record, Your Honor.
This is the matter of Antar versus Lotus. If each party would identify themselves for the record.
My name is Matthew Lodis. You want my address and stuff like usual?
Not yet, sir. Ma'am,
Okay.
Are you with us?
Yes.
And your name?
Theodora Antar?
Do you have a camera, ma'am?
Yes.
All right. I'm going to have each of the parties raise your right hand. The clerk is going to swear you in.
Excellent. Do you both solemnly swear or sincerely affirm that the evidence you shall give concerning this case shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God upon penalty of perjury?
I do.
Yes.
Okay, sir, can you
Yes.
please state your first and last name?
My name is Matthew Lodis.
Can you please spell out your last name?
Lodice.
And your
can-
address, sir?
48 Quarry Hill Road, Waterbury, Connecticut, 06706.
Ma'am, Miss Antar, can you please state your first and last name?
Theodora Antar?
And can you please spell out your last name?
Antar.
And your address, please.
856 Shagbark, Shaggeark Drive, Orange, Connecticut.
All right, thank you. So, ma'am, who's sitting next to you?
This is my mother, and she wants to testify as a witness today.
Okay, well, she needs to move off screen, okay?
Okay.
And when and if you call her, then she'll be sworn in. Does she
Okay.
have her own camera?
Well, she can log on her own device, but we had it before and it was giving issues, so I told her to log off. Would you like me to have her log back on hers?
Not at this time, ma'am. Okay. All right.
Okay.
So, ma'am, this is your application for relief from abuse. You need to demonstrate to me you've been subjected to a continuous threat of present physical pain, physical injury, stalking, a pattern of threatening, and or coercive control. Ma'am, I want to let you know I'm taking judicial notice of your case in New Haven and the other restraining orders that you have filed here. Okay. So what do you have to tell me about the restraining order application?
So I think that it's necessary right now for there to be a restraining order, even with this order, which went into effect last week. Since the order was in effect, he has continued to harass me. He has continued to speak to me on the phone, even after the police told him not to. He has continued to interfere with both me and my daughter, Juliana. He has continued to...
So, ma'am, what is he doing? I need more specifics instead of broad generalizations. Tell me exactly what he's doing.
Yes, I did submit a substantial amount of evidence, and I wanted to know, the clerk said I could ask if I would be able to share that, because I have
So,
all
ma'am,
the evidence.
I think you're familiar with the process. Anything you submitted is a proposed exhibit, okay? So if there's something specific you want me to see, you have to go through the process of getting it admitted into evidence. So what is it that you want me to look at?
Okay, is it possible for you to just explain what the process is? Because I'm not familiar with the online, doing it on Zoom like this.
Okay, so ma'am, did you submit proposed exhibits? Did you e-file them? Did you send them to the other side?
Yes, and they said that I had to give it on a flash drive, which I did.
Okay, and you submitted it to Mr. Lodis?
Yes.
I have not received anything, Your Honor.
So,
I don't know
ma'am, when
she
did you submit the documents to Mr. Lodis?
I sent him multiple things via certified mail over the last week, and I don't have a way to email him it because there's the protective order. So if I'm able to, I'd be happy to share that with him right now. Or if there's a way to share another way, I'd be happy to send it. I have it all in a folder.
Okay, so ma'am, tell me what are these items that you wish to be made exhibits? What are they? Are they documents? Are they text messages between the two of you? What is it exactly you're seeking to submit?
Well, one part of it, which is he also has access to, are the messages which are in our family wizard. And so everything is documented there. I submitted that via fax yesterday, and it's also on the flash drive that I gave to the court. And he has access to all of that as himself because he's part of the app.
Okay, so what are the dates of the interactions between the two of you and our family wizard?
Well, I mean, I could go into detail about like specific dates, and then if there's things that I want to show on the messages, he can see those. But other than those, there's also videos and audio of things that happened in person or on phone calls where he's saying abusive things on the calls. For example, I discussed
Objection, Your Honor. You're not allowed to record in Connecticut without all parties being okay with recording.
Sir, what is your objection?
She cannot record without my permission, our phone calls, and she's also court ordered by the judge not to record any phone conversations involving our daughter.
Okay, and when was that order made, sir?
I don't know the exact day, but it was at least over a year ago. That it was stated. I could probably find it if I look through my paperwork.
Okay, so ma'am, when did these recordings take place? Allegedly.
Your Honor, there is no court order saying that I can't record.
Ma'am, just answer my question, please. When did these recordings allegedly take place, these conversations?
The majority of them were over the last like 4 months, but mostly the ones that were relevant to this are in the last couple weeks. So they're recent. Like the most important ones that I would like to share are in the last 2 to 3 weeks.
Okay. So the recordings of him that he left you a message, what are they? And ma'am, let me just say, if there are court orders that you aren't to record, then you may be violating court orders. I'm just making you aware of that. And sir, if that's the case, you can file a motion for contempt in New Haven. So ma'am.
Yes, and I just did want to put that on the record that there are no orders saying I can't record. And I was told by the police to record for my own safety. Matthew was told by the Orange Police Department back in April of 2022 that any communication with me must be solely in our Family Wizard app.
Okay, so ma'am, tell me how he is threatening, stalking, coercive control. Because I want you to focus on the fact that we're here on a restraining order. We're not relitigating any custody cases, okay?
Right, and that's part of the coercive control is because it's intimidation. If the police tell him, which they did on multiple occasions, they told him in April and they told him again, Officer Fernandez of the Orange Police Department told him again, I believe it was July 24th. It was that week. And he was been told many times, don't talk to me outside of this app. He was arrested for harassment for continuing to do that. There was a protective order that was protecting me that was issued in that case, which was
when, ma'am? When?
It was from January 30th until July 24th or that same week. So that's the reason why I called the police, because literally.
Ma'am, hold on a second. What year are you talking about?
This year.
Okay, so 2023.
Yeah, so basically the day that his protective order, his case ended and the protective order was dismissed. And so the very next day, he immediately started to harass me even more on the phone calls, which these are calls where I'm calling to speak to my daughter. I'm calling to have phone calls with my daughter, who in the court orders from New Haven, it says I'm allowed to see her. I'm allowed to have FaceTimes with her. And we went to court. The last time I was in court was on June 15th of this year. And the judge specifically said to him, and I gave the transcript as one of the exhibits, that Mr. Lodis, you need to let your daughter see her mother regularly. You need to start giving her a schedule to see her. You can't not let her see her. And I know we're here about the restraining order, and this is where it ties into the coercive control, because isolating me from my family member, not just me, isolating my mother, isolating my 8-year-old daughter, our entire family has been isolated from her, and that's abuse. The court order doesn't say withhold the child from Ms. Antar. The court order doesn't say terminate phone calls. The court order does not give him the right to terminate my phone calls and deny me FaceTimes. And so, if just to put it in perspective, in the last 4 months since temporary sole custody was transferred to him, I've only been able to see my daughter for less than 48 hours in 4 months. And if you think about that, an average person's working that much in 1 week. I spent less than that in 4 months with my daughter, who before I was with every single day, 6 days a week, besides going with him for some of the weekends. And so.
All right. So hold on, ma'am. Hold on. I'm looking at the orders from New Haven.
Okay.
that were entered on May 31st, 2023. And pursuant to those orders, the mother's access will be determined by the father in the presence of a third party designated by the father. Arrangements must be in writing. Text or email is sufficient. That's what the orders were, correct?
Yes, and it also does say that I'm allowed to have FaceTimes as well.
Okay, so what's going on with the FaceTimes? He's interrupting them?
He's interrupting them. He's not allowing them at all. He says in there, he says to me, oh, it says in the court order, you may have FaceTime. May means it's not obligated. Therefore, it's in her best interest not for you not to have any FaceTimes. So now he blocked me on his phone. He has two phones. He has an iPhone and he has an Android phone. And on iPhone, I have an iPhone as well. We FaceTime typically. And so now he blocked me for weeks now, and I'm not able to FaceTime. Every time I'll speak to my daughter on a regular call, I say, you know, can you FaceTime me? Or mommy tried to FaceTime, you didn't answer. And she'll say, no FaceTime allowed. No FaceTime allowed. Daddy doesn't want FaceTime. Daddy doesn't like FaceTime. And she'll say things like, and then I'll say, okay, well then why don't we do it on Google Duo or Google Meet, which is the same for the Android. And then she'll start saying, no, Daddy doesn't like Google Meet. He said, no, we're never doing it. And I have all these things recorded.
Objection, Your Honor. Relevance to this hearing?
Yeah. And so, ma'am, I understand that there are issues between the two of you with the parenting and the parenting schedule. But I'm just reminding you again, this is a restraining order hearing, okay, that you filed here in Milford. I'm not exactly sure why you didn't file it in New Haven, since they are familiar and you have a file in New Haven. So how many times have you filed a restraining order against Mr. Lodis?
Yes, and I'd like to put this on the record that I have filed an appeal, and I've also filed a mandamus against the judge in New Haven who was refusing to let anything get heard. She stated to me on the record on December 1st, 2022, that she was going to make it so I could never file for a restraining order again. I asked to transfer that case to Milford because I live in Orange, and I was denied being transferred that case. I don't want to go to New Haven because my rights have been violated.
Well, I'm not saying you have to go to New Haven. Okay, my question was, how many restraining orders have you filed in New Haven against Mr. Lodis?
In New Haven, there was a few, but I tried to file to answer your question from before. I tried to file in June 2 restraining orders, actually 3 restraining orders in Milford. 2 of them were granted and then subsequently vacated, and then sua sponte transferred to New Haven, and then supposedly were going to get heard on June 15th, but they were not heard on June 15th because she wouldn't let me speak about those. Then I tried to do it in New Britain because he was living in New Britain, and they did the same thing, transferred it over there. So I withdrew the case. Over to
where, New Haven?
New Haven. So I withdrew the case because I filed a recusal about the judge for violating my rights, and I would like to have a fair hearing, and I feel I shouldn't be forced to have anything only be heard by that one judge. And I know you're saying it's a restraining order, but under Public Act 2178, Jennifer's Law, coercive control is domestic violence in the state of Connecticut. It's abuse. Psychological.
And ma'am, that's why I'm asking for specifics on how you are specifically that you are subjected to continuous threat of present physical pain, physical injury, stalking, presently, or coercive control. Okay.
Yes.
So tell me how that is.
Yes. And I was trying to get into that, and he objected and interrupted, saying it wasn't relevant. It is relevant. It's everything I'm saying is relevant because it's establishing this pattern of psychological and emotional abuse, which is far more dangerous and causes many more physical issues than physical abuse can. And
so, ma'am, let me just interrupt you a second. Are you saying that coercive control is that he is overseeing your interaction with your child? Is that what you're saying? And that's coercive control?
I'm saying that the aspect that ties in with my child is isolating me from my family member. And, you know, in accordance with the laws, it says here that is coercive control, isolating the family or household member from friends, relatives, or other sources of support, controlling, regulating, or monitoring their members' movements, communication, so on and so forth, compelling them, threatening to say that they have to abstain from contact that they have the right to pursue, or engage conduct that they have a right to abstain for. Now, for example, with my daughter, in this court order, it says I can FaceTime her. In this court order, it says that I can have access to her. And if you see, you read the May 31st order, there was another order on June 22nd, which said the order from May 31st stays in place, but, it just said some other things. And, it said, in those orders, it said that the father has to, tell mother if he puts the child in a new school. He has not done that. He says to me he's registering her for preschool. He won't tell me where it is. He also pulled her out of therapy, and now he put her with a new therapist that he's refusing to tell me the name of the therapist. My daughter said to me in front of my mother, who also witnessed this, that Daddy said, this therapist is just for me and Daddy. I'm not allowed to tell you the therapist's name. I'll be in trouble if I tell you the name.
Objection, Your Honor, hearsay.
Well, it is hearsay, ma'am. So, and these things aren't necessarily things you should be discussing with your 4-year-old. So tell me about when you see your child. So how is the process working when you see your child? You notify him on a date, or he notifies you on a date or time or it's supposed to be through our family wizard app?
No.
Is that the process?
There was no official process, because there's nothing in that order that gives a straightforward avenue to getting this done. There's no schedule. There's nothing like that. And so from May 25th to June 15th, when we went back to court, I was asking him every single day, and I have all the messages showing me begging him every single day to see my daughter, and him saying, no, you can't see her. I would ask him for a schedule. He would refuse to give me a schedule. So the fact that he's doing this is isolating me from my daughter, isolating my mother. And he, not only that, but then it's like, I'll say to him, please provide me with a schedule. And he'll say, oh, it has to be supervised. You need to be under strict supervision. You can't be alone with her even for 1 second. And if I'm going to let you see her, I need to speak to the person on the phone first. But the court order says arrangements must be made in writing. So I'll say things like, the court order says we must be in writing. I'll have the person who's going to be with us text you, or they can message you in the app. He'll say, no, absolutely not. If they message me in the app or text me and don't call me beforehand, then the visit isn't happening. Or he'll say to me, oh, when do you want to see her? And I'll say, oh, can I see her on this day? And he'll read the message and say nothing. And in our family wizard, it shows you the timestamp of when they viewed the message. So there's weeks where he would just, every time I message asking to see my daughter, he will read the message and say nothing over and over and over and over and over.
When was the last time you saw your daughter, ma'am?
The last time that I saw my daughter was on Sunday, August 27th, and I was allowed to see her for 3 hours total. The time before that I saw her was August 4th for, 3 hours. So, and then in July, I saw her one time for 3 hours. So and now we're in September. Yesterday was my birthday. He intentionally refused to let me see her. He has not let me FaceTime her in weeks. He told his mother, and now the thing is that my daughter's not even with him most of the time. Most of the time she's with his mother, his minor children, his any of his multiple girlfriends that he has, other family members like his sister. And so during these long spans of time when he's working and he's not even with the child, instead of letting me see her and letting me spend time with my daughter who is being isolated from me, he will tell whoever's with her, do not let Miss Antar watch her. Do not let her see her. Do not answer the phone for her, and don't let her FaceTime. So
are you talking about whoever's
objection, hearsay
supervisor?
Again?
It is here. Who's your supervisor, ma'am? Who's with you when you see your daughter?
So there's no designated person. It just says, and honestly, the court order, if you read it, it says must be in the presence of a third party. That's all it says. It doesn't even say it has to be 18 or has to be this or has to be that. Just in the presence of a third party. So really, if he said to me, look, I'm going to drop her off at church, you're with other people there, that's fine, and then I'll pick her up after. That's in the presence of a third party. It doesn't say.
Well, ma'am, it also says in the presence of a third party designated by the father.
Right, and that's part of the issue with what he does with this coercive control, is that this has been saying that since May 25th. And since May 25th to now, September 8th, he has never once designated a person as the supervisor. Never once. He refuses to. He will pretend that he is. And the thing he said before is not hearsay because I have it on video. I have recordings. It's not hearsay. I have witnesses. It's not hearsay. And as far as the supervisor thing, like I was saying, I would say, look, I want to see my daughter. And he would say, oh, no, you can't see her. I don't have anybody that wants to supervise. Nobody wants anything to do with you. My whole family hates you.
So, ma'am, who was the last person in August that was with you when you saw your daughter? Who was the supervisor or the designated third party?
It was my mother, the one who is here with me right now.
Understood.
And so, but just so you know, Your Honor, since then, on that same day, he told my mother she will never be allowed to supervise again. He told her she's not allowed to ever supervise or speak to my daughter again. We're telling him in the app, like, you know, we'd like to see my daughter this. He's laughing. We're saying we're going to go to court. He says, don't worry. I'll make sure it gets thrown out like everything else. He says to me, go ahead, call the police. They're not going to do anything. All this intimidating stuff. And he does this in front of my daughter. Everything that he's saying, he tells my daughter on the phone calls, you know, you're not allowed to see mommy because she didn't find a supervisor. Mommy didn't follow the proper rules and give me a supervisor. Your visits need to, or I'll say to him things in the app like, oh, I'd like to take Angelina to, you know, my friend Carrie, I think she might have had to go, but she was going to be a witness today. And she said she's a member of a pool club. She's known Matthew and she's been to our house a bunch of times for years now. And she said, look, you know, if you ever want to come, I could supervise the visit. You guys can come to the pool club. Matthew could even bring his other kids if he wants, this and that. And you know, I try to say nice things like that in the app saying, you guys are welcome to come. Can we arrange this visit at the pool club? It'll be really fun for the kids. And his response is absolutely not. I control the location of your visits. I control how long it is. I control where it takes place. I control the supervisor. I don't feel comfortable with that. He says my daughter's never allowed to go to our house again. And this is why I want to show you the video, because this specific video is from the last time I saw my daughter on August 27th. My mother was a witness and my 8-year-old daughter was a witness and his 11-year-old son was a witness. He did this in front of 3 minor children in public, and my daughter was giving me a hug, saying bye, and I'm recording this. And then I'm just telling my daughter I love her. And then she says, Daddy, Mommy went to her house. And he says to her, you know, oh, did you go to her house too? And she said, yeah. And he goes, well, don't worry. That's okay, because Yaya is never going to be allowed to supervise you ever again. And you're never going to be allowed to have Yaya see you again now. And then he started like threatening my mother, telling her that she's never going to be able to see her granddaughter, who before August 27th, my mom had not seen Angelina since June. She didn't see her for 2.5 months.
So, ma'am, I'm looking at the order from Judge Grossman from June. Let me just get the exact date. June 22nd, 2023, when you were back in court. And in that order, Judge Grossman wrote that Dad was willing to allow your aunt and your mom to supervise. Dad was willing to set up a schedule. However, you refused.
Right. That's not true. And this is why I said I'm filed an appeal and a federal lawsuit against Judge Grossman for putting slanderous lies. And I'm putting on the record that that is not true. I have the transcript. If you can access the flash drive that I gave the clerk this morning, I just pulled up the transcript. And I also have the audio of that hearing. So you can see for yourself how that's not accurate. As far as this, I have the transcript here. And like I said to her, I wanted to address a schedule. I said I wanted to have my child Monday through Friday. Matthew works a lot. And I said, that's my schedule. I made a proposed parenting plan. You know, Mr. Lodi said I could have a couple overnights, that he was okay with that. And then I said, you know, I can't discuss about a schedule if you know, you're saying my mother, it wasn't my aunt, it's my sister and my mom, who he said in court that day that he would allow or be okay with as supervising. But neither of them were in court that day. So And, my mom was going through a surgery. My sister is a eye doctor, so she's really busy. So I can't just say, yes, those people can do it and I can make a schedule right now on the spot when I haven't even had a chance to ask them. And I know they're busy and probably can't even commit to that. And so honestly, the fact that there was no supervisor designated and the fact that there's no schedule designated and the fact that it says that my access may include video calls. Matthew says that gives him the right to deny me visitation, to say that he can terminate and not allow me visitation, terminate and not allow me phone calls or video calls, and refuse to let me see my child. He only let me see her 2 to 3 hours a month, and that's after me begging every single day. You could see the thousands of messages there. And on this day, we wouldn't go to court June 22nd. It was June 15th. And on this day,
so, ma'am, the orders are from June 22nd. That's what
right,
I'm saying. Okay.
Yeah, the judge put those orders in after days later. She put in the orders. So like when we left, nothing was ordered at the hearing. But on here, like I'm looking at the transcript here, and the Judge Grossman said on page 97 of the transcript, would it be possible to set up regular schedule between your mom and your sister for you and Angelina? Would that be possible? And I said, I said it would be easy if it wasn't having to be supervised, and and then I'll say, like, before he was in New Britain.
Objection, Your Honor. I'd like her, when she reads these transcripts, to read it all the way through line by line, because what she's doing is saying, and like skipping over what her actual response was.
Okay, so sir, that's not an objection. You have the right when and if you cross-examine to present parts of the transcript that you would like to be included. But ma'am, I think we're going a bit afar of what we're here for today. Okay, this is a restraining order hearing. We're not really litigating your custody case. Okay, and what it says here in the June 22nd, 2023 orders of Judge Grossman is the mother's access with the child remains as stated in the May 31st, 2023 orders, okay? And those orders provide to dad the right to determine your access, putting it in simple terms, okay? And your telephone and video access. Those are what the orders are. But we are here on a restraining order. You are saying that you have been subjected to a continuous threat of present physical pain, physical injury, or coercive control. So as I said earlier, you are saying that the coercive control is the fact that he is controlling your interaction with your child?
Well, there's several things, and like I said, the only aspect that I'm putting in regarding this order is the fact that he is abusing this to isolate me, and coercion and coercive control is a crime in Connecticut. I have the right to see my daughter. I could see my daughter every single day, and it would probably be in my 4-year-old daughter's best interest to see her mother and older sister every day. And it's like, it would be in her best interest to do that. He knows that. He's not even with her. She's with strangers. She's spending 18 hours a day with other people, and during that time, I'm being denied access. And when I say to him, look, it's in the court order that I can FaceTime, he says, nope, it says you may FaceTime. It doesn't say you must FaceTime. Therefore, I'm not allowing FaceTimes. So that's coercive control. That is him being unreasonable to try to abuse me and psychologically abuse me and cause me more pain mentally, because I have a court order saying, look, I may have FaceTime, but he says, nope. I'm going to be so technical, and I'm going to say the word may means that I have the power to deny you it. And then what I was bringing about the police before is that, since it's been 18 months now that he's been told repeatedly, and the minute the protective order expired, even when the protective order was on, he continued to speak to me on the phone over and over and over and over and over every time. And I would say to him in the app, please stop speaking to me on the phone. You were told by the police not to do that or you would be arrested. Why do you keep doing it? And he goes, oh, I can do what I want. I don't need to follow the order. And he also would say, it says in there, the calls are monitored by the father or something like that. So he'll say to me on the phone calls with my child, he'll say, he'll start screaming at me on the phone. He'll start interfering with the calls. He'll start saying all of these things on the calls. And I'll say to him, I don't want to talk to you. And I'll say to my daughter, like, can you please walk away? Like, you know, I don't like when he's talking to me when I'm trying to talk to you. And then he'll say, the court order says I get to supervise. He says it all angry like this. The court order says I supervise the calls. That means that I'm allowed to terminate the calls and I can talk to you because I'm supervising and I have to make sure you're not abusing my daughter and this, and that. And that's why it's like, I'd like to please be able to play one of these so you can hear exactly what I'm referring to. So it's not just me saying it and being accused of hearsay. I have all of these things. I took the time. I spent my entire birthday organizing this. And he's over here laughing. He's over here sitting there on Teams before you got on the call, laughing, smiling, smirking, all intimidation.
All right, ma'am, hold on one second. Hold on one second. I want to hear from Mr. Lodis. So, sir, what do you have to say?
I'm sorry, Your Honor. Okay, there's a lot to touch on. I'm going to try to get through it really quickly for you because I know that she went on a lot about it. First of all, I never said her mother could never talk to her again. I would never do that. I would never say anything like that. The day that issue happened was that their mother said that they would be back at a certain time. Their mother also guaranteed me that she would stay in constant communication via telephone with me, and she did not. These are the only things I asked. So it says that I'm allowed to pick the supervisor, and I try to pick the supervisor for her visits, but since all the people – she's created a lot of problems with my family and stuff in my life, calling them, harassing them, posting messages. That's neither here nor there. But the issue is it's hard for me to find a supervisor from my end. So what I have been doing is I have been allowing her to pick some supervisors as long as I approve of them. The only requirement I ever ask is they stay in constant communication with me. And then the location that we pick is the location that they stay in. So if they're like one time they went to a fair and I dropped her off with her Aunt Donna, the one that we were talking about earlier in court, at the last court case, it's not really her aunt. It's like they call her aunt, but she's not really her aunt. It's like a family friend. And I said, you know, the only thing I ever ask is that you just stay in communication with me on the phone. This way, if I got to text you like, hey, how's everything going? Is, you know, you still with her? Blah, blah, blah. Are you staying at the place? That she would communicate with me. And these are the only things I ever asked about her picking the supervisors. And the issue I had with her mom last time, I said, yeah, I'm sorry, your mom can no longer supervise because I was very clear that I didn't want her going to Theodora's house. They were supposed to go to the church, have an event at the church, stay at the church, and then come right back to me, as they both promised. Both Theodora promised and her mother promised that they were doing. But they didn't end up doing that. They ended up going straight to Theo's house and hanging out there, which they weren't supposed to do.
Why aren't they supposed to do it, sir?
Because a lot of times what happens is her mom will pick her up and then they'll just go to the house and then the mom wouldn't be there. I don't know if the mom's there. The whole point of the visit was supposed to be at the church. There was an event going on at the church and Theodora wanted Angelina to be there. And I said, fine, you can, I would be absolutely happy to let her go to the church that day. But they didn't even do that. Like they basically lied to me, said that there was an event that they were going to, and instead they just hung out at Theo's house. And it's not like her mom's going to stay with her at Theo's house the whole time. And if she does, she's going to be in the other room, and then Theo's going to be alone with her, and no one's going to be supervising the actual visit. Now, to touch base about the FaceTime.
Sir, let me just say, it just says that the visits are to be in the presence of a third party designated by the father. That's what it says. It doesn't use the term supervise. It uses it in the presence, okay?
No, in another part of the order, it does says mother's under supervised visits only. I believe that's in the May 31st one. I mean, isn't in the presence of a third party meaning a supervised visit?
Well, sir, I'm just telling you what the order is.
Yeah. So that to
So
me,
where
that's
does it
a
say supervised?
I thought it did. Maybe it doesn't. Let me check the other one real quick. Then I guess I'm not misspeaking about it. To me, having a third party person there is supervised visits? I mean, isn't that what a supervised visit is? The fact that she can't be alone with her, that a third party has to be there? Is that not the same thing?
I'm not answering your question, sir. You used the term supervised. I'm using the
Okay,
term
it doesn't
that's
say
in the
supervised
order
visit.
that
Fine.
says hold on, that says monitor. Okay. All right. So, ma'am, what you have here is a high conflict custody case. Both of you have been to court in New Haven numerous times. What I suggest to you, ma'am, very seriously, is consulting with an attorney and having an attorney help guide you through this process, okay? Because you have not presented a continuous threat of present physical pain, physical injury, stalking, or coercive control. The fact that there are certain court orders in place regarding your contact with your child does not make that coercive control because he's following those orders. And I understand there's some disputes between the two of you. However, this isn't the forum in which to resolve those differences. This is a 46B15 application. Okay? You understand?
I'm sorry. It cut off when you were speaking. I heard you say, what I suggest is you consulting with, and then
An attorney, ma'am. An attorney that'll help guide you through this process. Okay? Because this is not,
Okay,
hold on.
Yep.
Okay? This is not a 46B15 situation. This is a custody visitation situation where you need to fine tune your parenting time with your child. Okay? It's not coercive control because he's monitoring and overseeing pursuant to a court order your interaction with the child.
Your Honor, if I may be given the due process to please finish speaking because I was interrupted by him. I didn't even get into the stalking. I didn't even get into anything
Okay, so
else.
ma'am, I'm going to let you briefly tell me about the stalking.
Yes.
Tell me about the
Okay.
stalking.
Yes. And this is all part of the psychological coercive control he's been doing. He's been stalking me. He, as I said in my affidavit, he is tracking my location. He's sitting there smiling and laughing right now as a form of intimidation. This is all what he does. He says to me on the call,
No, ma'am, I'm just going to make sure the record is clear. I do not see him smiling and laughing at you, okay? So tell me how he is stalking you.
Okay, may I play the recording that I submitted so that I can show this call that I'm referring to?
Okay, so tell me what was said.
So, as I stated in my affidavit, I did not speak a word to anybody of the fact that I was going to be going to the airport to travel out of state.
Okay.
And I intentionally kept this a secret because I was suspecting that he's been tracking the movements of my vehicle now for over 2 years because there's been numerous incidents I have documented where he knew exactly where I was. I have emails from him saying, don't think that I don't know where you always are. He said there was incidents where he told the police that I was at my house because my car was there when I was in a different town. And there's been multiple times where he says to my daughter during calls, Mommy's at work right now. Mommy's at work. And like, he'll say I'm at work if I'm parked in, doing an internship where I'm not getting paid and it's not work. It's an internship. And so like, he would think, oh, she's at this office. She must be working. And then saying those things on the calls to my daughter. And this is what there's on recordings. So on this day, on August 12th.
And what year, ma'am?
Within 5 minutes.
What year, ma'am?
2023.
Okay, thank you.
And so, like I said, I intentionally, my 8-year-old daughter was with me. I have this recorded. I said to her, do not say a word to anybody about this because I'm afraid that I, have a feeling that maybe he's, stalking me and I just want to keep it quiet. I don't want him to know. She didn't say anything to anybody and I didn't say anything to anybody either. I did not post anything on social media. There was no inclination at all of this. So
this is when you were traveling out of state, ma'am? Are you talking about that incident? Okay.
Correct. And this is what was extremely alarming to me was that as I literally pulled into the parking lot of long-term parking of JFK Airport, 5 minutes after that, I said to my daughter, let's call Angelina. Let's try to call her now before it gets too late. And recorded the call like I was advised to do by the police many times. And in the call, he starts by saying all these harassing things to his brother, Scott Lodise, who on the record we have a hearing for the 14th for the TRO I filed against him for sexually harassing me. And he was told by the police, stop harassing me, don't contact me again. And on that same day, on the 13th or the 12th, it was that Saturday, on this phone call where I have recorded, Scott Lodise says to Matt, when this is supposed to be a call with me calling his phone to speak to my minor daughter. And instead of him answering the phone and just giving the phone to my daughter, letting me talk to her, he will keep the phone on speaker and he'll start saying all these harassing, disparaging things about me, saying, and him and his brother says, oh, what is she out being a slut again? And this is in front of my daughter too, on the phone with me, in front of both my kids. And he says, she's out being a slut again. And Matt's like, oh yeah. And he goes, oh, can I talk to her? This was after the Wallingford Police Department told him, do not speak to me again or I'll be arrested. And Matt says to Scott on the phone, it's fine. You're allowed to talk to her if you want, as long as there's no restraining order in effect. You can talk to her, even though he knows the police gave him a warning already. And so then Scott starts talking to me, trying to talk to me on the phone. And then they're both laughing, saying all these harassing things. And I'm able to play the call. You have a copy of it in the.
So, ma'am, how is that stalking?
Please let me finish. And so then seconds later, I hung up because I was like, I'm not going to listen to this abuse and stuff when I'm just trying to talk to my daughter. I hung up. I then tried to call back again. And then the second time when I called back, he continued to make harassing statements about me and the brother. And then he said he was going to be, he says, Angelina, come talk to mommy. Puts it on the phone. And he says, here you go. Talk to mommy. Mommy's on vacation right now. And, as soon as he says that, my stomach dropped and I'm like, it's just so sickening. It feels so violating. Why would he say mommy's on vacation right now? And then Angelina starts saying, oh, and this is like, I wanted to play this call and you have it if you review it as well, where he said, I want it on the record. And he says, she's on vacation. And my daughter starts saying, oh, you're on vacation? And I'm just like, no, why were you saying that? And she's like, well, that's what daddy's saying. Daddy's saying you're on vacation. And meanwhile, he keeps telling his brother, it's okay. None of the abuse matters. It's not admissible in court anyway. He goes, you know how many times she tried to get evidence in and I made sure she didn't get it in? And you bring up me trying to apply for things in the past. Well, as a pro se who doesn't know what they're doing and can't afford a lawyer, I don't have the luxury to consult with an attorney because I can't afford one. And there's no help for people who can't afford one. So
okay, ma'am, hold on one second. Hold on one second. I want to hear from him about your vacation and the August phone call.
Why can't I play the video? Can I play the video?
No, ma'am. You can't. There isn't no capacity to play the video here. Okay.
I can play it right now on the phone.
So, ma'am, you can't. It can't go on the record that way. Okay. Just hold on. I want to hear what he has to say. Mr. Lodise.
Yes.
How did you know she was on vacation?
I did not know she was on vacation. I assumed it because of a couple reasons. One, she told Angelina before she lost custody in May that she was going to be going on vacation in Florida. And that's why she bought Angelina these special pair of sandals. And that's why, if you read the protective order that she filed, the filing of the protective order, it says that Matthew says that she was in Florida. The reason I could figure out she was on vacation is she always FaceTimes Angelina. She was always FaceTiming Angelina every day, and I was always allowing the FaceTimes. And then during this 1 week period, she's not allowing Angelina to FaceTime. Angelina just keeps asking, can I FaceTime? Can I FaceTime? She's like, no, I can't right now. No, I can't right now. And I said, oh, yeah, because mommy's probably on vacation, and she doesn't want me to know because she owes me 14 weeks of child support.
Hold on, sir. So you said that to your 4-year-old daughter?
What's that?
That mommy's probably on vacation and she owes me 14 weeks of child support?
No, I didn't say that part. Absolutely. I would never say something like that to my daughter. I said, mommy's probably on vacation, so she can't FaceTime right now. I'm just saying that the reason why she does that is because she owes me 14 weeks child support, and she knows once I file a contempt motion, she's going to have to explain to court how she can afford vacations but can't afford child support. So she doesn't want me knowing about these things. It's not, it's nothing. Sorry.
So, ma'am, did you have your car checked to see if there's any sort of tracking device on your automobile?
Yes. And may I please respond to what he said?
No. Answer my question, ma'am.
No. Well, yes, I did twice, and I have an appointment to bring it again to the dealer to check again, and I'm actively trying to have it searched. And I just also would like to say, for the record, I do want my mom to have a chance to speak because she did witness a lot of these things I'm saying. But as far as He didn't answer your question how he knew. He's saying to me that I didn't FaceTime my daughter. He's telling my daughter FaceTimes are not allowed. I have all the messages in the app where he said he told her about Florida. He said that days later. So
Okay,
every day.
Hold on, ma'am.
Yes.
Hold on. Okay.
Yes.
You have not demonstrated to me, and we're not going to go on all day for you to put witnesses on to tell me how the two of you don't get along and you're having issues seeing your daughter and you're having issues speaking to your daughter. This is a 46B15 hearing, okay? The custody, the parenting is to be addressed in New Haven, and you file the appropriate motion. So, ma'am, your application for relief from abuse here in Milford, based on the testimony and based on your affidavit, is denied.
Will I be able to finish testimony because you didn't give me due process to cross-examine
Ma'am,
him?
I gave you due process. You've had due process. Due process. Ma'am, stop interrupting me.
I have the
Due
right to
process
cross-examine
doesn't
him.
mean that you have a right to continue talking about all of these issues that should be and were addressed in your family case in New Haven. We're not relitigating the custody. You're interrupting me again. We're not relitigating the parenting. Okay? It's not a 46B15.
About stalking. It is. I have a lot of things here about the stalking, about the harassment, about the isolation, about the coercive control under 21-78. And you're not even allowing me to cross-examine him. I just took notes. I didn't say anything while he was speaking. Everything he said was false.
I understand, ma'am. But you have demonstrated, you have not demonstrated to me that you've been subjected to a
so let me show my
continuous threat of present physical pain, physical injury, stalking, or coercive control.
More than 54 minutes, and you don't let me cross-examine him. You don't let my witnesses.
And ma'am, as I said earlier, I took judicial notice of the file in New Haven.
And what does that mean? And what does that mean? New Haven said they're not allowed to hear anything. New Haven said they're not going to hear anything until the recusal happens, which isn't scheduled. New Haven has two different attorneys from the Attorney General office that are involved in the case in the appellate court. So you're telling me that there's no way I can get relief here. Why can't I cross-examine the witness? You asked him, how do you know I was on vacation? He then confused and went off topic and said about child support. He owes me $15,000 in child support. Okay. He says to my daughter.
And you both should pursue that in the magistrate court.
We're not talking about child support today. We're talking about the stalking. How did he know that I was there 5 minutes after I got there? He didn't answer that. How did he know? There's no way he would have known. He says, oh, I said Florida because I assumed she was in vacation the minute that she arrived at the airport because she didn't FaceTime my daughter that day. I did FaceTime. I tried to FaceTime multiple times, and he said to me, no more FaceTimes. You're not allowed to FaceTime. And then I kept saying him in the app because every day after that, when I talked to my daughter, he said to me, hey, mommy's still on vacation. Ask mommy how her vacation is. Ask mommy how her vacation is. And I kept saying, please, Angelina, we're not on vacation. Then she's saying, yes, you are. Daddy's right. You are on vacation. And then he says, yeah, they're in Florida. You were supposed to go with them, but you're not allowed to go with them. And mommy's lying. She knows she's on vacation. And he did say, he goes, she just doesn't want me to know. He's rolling his eyes. For the record, I have it on recording. I submitted it to the clerk this morning. I was told by the clerk's office yesterday I'd be able to share my screen and show these video exhibits despite this being a
Well, I don't know who in the clerk's office told you that, ma'am. Okay?
You're saying that
you're not
saying
sharing
that in
your
a team
screen. Ma'am, your restraining order, ma'am, your restraining order's denied. Okay?
That's fine. I'll be filing an appeal.
Okay.
Your Honor,
all right.
may I address the court and ask a quick question?
You didn't let me cross-examine. You didn't let me cross-examine him. He sat there for the last week saying that there was no restraining order. I have messages from him saying I'm allowed to do what I want. There's no restraining order. It only.
All I can say to both of you is you need to focus on what's best for your child, and this interaction between the two of you that you both testified to, and putting this poor little girl in the middle of this is very unfortunate. Okay, it's very unfortunate. All right. Thank you both.
There's no relief for abuse. And for the record, I will be filing an appeal.
All right, ma'am. Thank you.